So what does a troll do when you point out that their assertion about you looking up the number of barnacles per kilogram for fish doesn't lead where they say it does? Just because you raise acceptable levels doesn't make it any more safe for us. That's not what happened. That was the level before Fukushima happened. Nobody raised the level. That wasn't the point. You're ignoring the point that you didn't make one. I made one. Cattle from Fukushima Prefecture were found to have excessive levels of the radioactive material you're talking about. Fish aren't showing that because they're not currently, which is the assertion you're making. You believe that if you increase the safety levels by over 1,000%, you're safer. I never said that, and that's not what the point was. You're ignoring the point to what I said. Let's quickly and deftly look up your comment in the background here and try to get your comment to show up, because I'm going to read your comment and my response to it that you're ignoring, because you're ignoring the comment response. Too bad you're a liar and a paid nuclear shill, and then one of your other sock puppet accounts came along and said something about the number of barnacles per kilogram. Alright, only one source quoted an excessive level for fish, anywhere near Fukushima, which is where you would expect it. A single fish was found on another continent with excessive levels, right next to a country that constantly bombs its own waters for nuclear testing for decades. Let's ignore that. Pacific bluefin tuna that spawned by Japan, found with 30-year half-life cesium from Hiroshima Nagasaki bombs and 2 decades of Pacific Ocean weapons tests, and I should add in, dumping nuclear waste over right in the ocean. But we got to blame Fukushima. 2015, years later, out of 400 such and such salmon, one was found with low but detectable levels of 2-year half-life cesium-134 you won't acknowledge. Detected in seawater samples may have come from Fukushima, but as of 2019, it would have gone through 4 half-lives and be 1/16th of the intensity. And then I gave you the information of it. Also, I pointed out that the reason you're mad at me is I'm the number 3 result, and I will be higher eventually, for people looking up cesium, fish, and Pacific Ocean, whether or not I put Fukushima in it. It's pissing you off because I post not an opinion, but actual, real comparative analysis of stuff, badly done by a geek who just double-checks Wikipedia to make sure it's not misquoting things. By the way, most of the Wikipedia links on the subject are dead links that used to go to scientific papers that have been retracted if they're against, if they're saying Fukushima is killing everybody. But let's look at some more. But there's more. 2011, the same year as Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, the Japanese legal limit for cows before this happened was 500 barnacles per kilogram, or was it 100? 11 cows shipped to Tokyo had a monstrously high level of 1,500 to 3,200 barnacles per kilogram. Obviously excessive. I'm not arguing that. That's not about raising the safety limit. That's me acknowledging that if you looked at cattle, you could do another comparison. You don't do that? Why? Because the cattle don't show this excessive level anymore. Huffington Post said, Malcolm Foster said, a single anonymous utility official said something, and then it was retracted because Huffington Post destroyed the article because it was bullshit, because they only had one source and they wouldn't name it, saying they had a single fish with 740,000 barnacles per kilogram, which is ridiculously high, even in comparison to cattle. But the fish was a bottom feeder, feeding off the mud outside of Fukushima, downrange of it, right off the coastline, right there, in the harbor, or whatever, right next to it. But again, this is an assertion of a friend, and nobody, we can't give a source. So it was retracted because it couldn't be corroborated, and after a while, other people tested and found the same thing. So your response to me pointing out that these stories have been updated, that these sources have been found to be invalid, or that papers have been retracted, or me pointing out that an entire story you based that on was essentially bullshit from the start on Huffington Post using an AP writer who basically quoted somebody who wasn't willing to go on record. Your response was that it's all about raising the limits from 100 barnacles per kilogram to 400. Is that it? That was what you took from this, because you see through the lens of trutherism. And you also use a Beautiful Girl by Dana as a Time magazine cover character. And now they've got a spider on here. Move it, Spidey. Nuclear spider. So anyway, what can we take from this? You are tone deaf to facts. You're not a usable source for information. Your assertions are shit. You're a Beautiful Girl by Dana fan because, as my last video I just posted shows, the majority of radioactive cesium and other elements that have long half-lives, and some of the short half-life ones, were done by nuclear testing and weapons-grade waste material being dumped by Russia in the Pacific Ocean. That's where the majority of it came from. Didn't like that, did you? Posted that as soon as you saw the video. With a graphic on the screen, very graphic content. You are too dumb to even understand that Japanese state secrecy acts. I won't bother explaining something to a blind person who has no form of compassion for our species or any form of human. You are lying about the radiation levels, and it's demonstratively untrue that you made these statements. You also did a just asking questions. What is the radiation level per kilogram? Maybe double background in normal fish. In bottom feeders they found a fish, but nobody can corroborate it, and later testing didn't show anything of the sort. So the AP guy, the guy who posted the story, was posting a bullshit source that said, well, we discovered this, but he didn't specify which version of cesium. It could have been radioactive waste dumped. Oh, by the way, did you know where the Russians dumped the radioactive waste? In the Sea of Japan. I'm sorry. Let me repeat that. Radioactive waste containing both forms of cesium were dumped by the Russians into the Sea of Japan, which caused this. There were nuclear bombs detonated by us in Japan that caused some of it. We dumped radioactive waste in the ocean, but the Russians did it very close to Japan, and more of it. And the total liquid output, barracles, well, it's trillions and trillions of barracles. Yeah, it's equivalent to 1 or 2 cans, keg, dump-off barrels that we or the Russians dumped. Take your pick who you want to blame. Hell, even the Japanese dumped some stuff too. But no, it's got to be Fukushima. It can't be Russia. And this is your assertion. You're truly a pathetic monster who deserves only the gallows. Come at me, bro. Amazing thing, almost getting your head ripped off. The only way to put it back on is carbon cabling. We call it graphite or carbon fiber. It crunches a lot, but it's almost impossible to rip it loose. I'm not modified. I'm not warm. I'm not even heated discussion mode. I'm just damaged and more dangerous than you are. So here we go. Besides the frontal lobe removal. Or was it the left parietal? Or was it the cockles? Or the metacockles? Or was it the spleen of my heart? So anyway, I won't bother explaining something to a blind person. Showing something to a blind person. Explaining something verbally or having them read from a text reader would actually work. You can't even get your metaphors correct. And I never said increasing the safety levels by over 1,000%. No, it was 5 times, not 1,000%. 5 times. 5 times. What's 5 times? That's not 1,000%, is it? You don't know. 100% would be going from 100 to 200. Okay, so maybe this is. No, that's not 1,000% either. That's just, it isn't. They increased the safety levels afterwards at 500%. 500 barracles, excuse me, from 100? Okay. Again, I was acknowledging a cow. You should too. Moo. Zen joke. Next, the fish, the only fish I could find with excessive levels that would be of any concern was a story that was posted by someone who refused to be identified and no corroboration was found. That's not a scientific study, that's hearsay, poorly done. And the story was retracted by just deleting it. Or you can check to see if I'm lying. But nuclear crime cartel is real, or nuclear crime cartel is real. Oh, it's Israel, not Israel. Thank you for posting your bullshit comments. It's been very entertaining, and I'm glad I've annoyed you. And I'm going to say a few things. Beautiful Girl by Dana is an incompetent twat, and that's not abusive. That's simply a critique. And I have to point this out. Again, for emphasis added, One of the people who's a Fukushima fearmonger did drywalling for years and even showed a video showing the compound he was using. It was recalled because of cancer risk. And I don't know if he really has cancer. He says he does, but he doesn't really offer any real proof. But okay, maybe he does. I'm not going to question that really, but he's a liar in every other way, so I have to say maybe he's lying. But let's assume he's not lying. The most likely source of Kevin Blanch getting cancer is because of occupational exposure to a cancer-causing compound that he was using every day for a decade or so. Not Fukushima. He wants them to pay his medical bills for him making a living doing this and not putting enough away to save up to take care of the inevitable consequences. My inevitable consequences of being a bicyclist is 4 broken teeth, and finally the pain's gone right now because I've got a lot of ibuprofen in my system. And I'm lucky that I can get away with this until I can get it taken care of. By the way, I'm going to be scheduling a visit as soon as possible. I found somebody who actually tells me prices up front. That was nice, at least partially. And they said, when I'm in there, after giving them a specific amount and signing away that I can't sue them, which I'm fine with, they'll tell me how much it's going to cost to go to a specialist, because they said, what you're describing isn't going to be a simple extraction. This is going to be the actual polar opposite of it. But they're happy to help me with it. They'll even give me a free consultation if it's a certain severity, which is nice. But anyway, just because you claim I am claiming a raise in acceptable levels doesn't mean I said it. And I never said any of these, and you don't understand how to do multiplication for percentages, and you have to show that there was a change in the levels. Remember, this is Japan. They may have a higher limit for what they consider dangerous because, again, emphasis added, they were hit by nuclear warheads. We dropped them on them. And they're a dumping ground for Russian nuclear waste. So, of course, you're not a Russia bot, angry that I posted a video pointing that out by leaving it up on the screen, but not actually pointing at it too much. Emphasis added. No, you're just a concerned person because you're saying I'm truly a pathetic monster who deserves only the gallows. So I deserve to die by quoting statistics you misquoted. Thanks for watching. Have a good